that is really creepy, but it does sound like they had a stalker, and it's a good job that the bathroom door was locked, because God knows what they would have done, especially if they had a knife. I was nearly kidnapped at 14. So this was a few years back, and I was walking home from a friend's house after hanging at hers after school. It was around 9:30 p.m. in summer, so the sun had for the most part set. It was relatively dark, but still bright enough where I could make out the things around me. I was stoned and was walking very slowly down the road to my house, which was only about a 20-minute walk away from my friends. The majority of my walk was spent on a straight, quiet suburban street that was very familiar to me, as I had done this walk plenty of times before. After maybe 5 minutes of walking, I noticed the first and only car to drive past. It was an old, beat-up white Honda, which I didn't take much notice to until another few minutes passed and it drove past again. Still, I wasn't concerned and continued about my walk, admiring the cracks in the pavement, or doing whatever else a stoned 14-year-old does on a walk. Another minute passes, and this car drives past again, this time more slowly, and I feel my stomach drop. I couldn't make out who was inside, but I knew something was off. I've always been very timid, so I tried to convince myself it's just paranoia and that I was just being dramatic until it drives past again about 2 minutes later and parked maybe 10 foot in front of me. As I approached the car, I kept my head down, but I hear a "hey there," and sure enough, I look up and there was a rough-looking man who you could tell just from appearance alone that he smelled like stale cigarettes and body odour, sitting in the driver's seat smiling at me. The lack of teeth and dirty shirt this man had on gave me a horrible vibe, so I just gave a little smile back and continued walking. I look up and notice he's driving alongside me, and he asks if I had directions to the closest gas station. I stopped and pointed in the general direction and told him where to go, and that it was less than a 5-minute drive away, when out of nowhere, I kinda just stared in confusion and fear as he squinted his eyes at me like he was trying to get a better look at my face. Then he said, "I'll take a guess, but I think I can tell from those eyes you've been smoking pot, little miss." I kinda just laughed and tried to walk away when he said come back, so I stopped in my tracks. Why I didn't just keep walking is beyond me, but I turned around and he pulls out a rather large bag of weed and asks if I want some. I tell him I'm okay and I have no money, and he said something along the lines of "I don't need your money, take it." I reassure him I'm fine and don't need it and try to continue walking, but nonetheless he continued driving alongside me. He then asked if I needed a ride home and tells me it's too dark to be walking alone, which really frightened me. He continued trying to coerce me into his car, and I became more and more unsettled. I began to look for the closest house with the light on, and after finding one, I tell him, "This is my house, good night," and walk up some stranger's driveway and walk straight into their home. There was a middle-aged couple sitting in the living room, and they looked extremely shocked and equally angry. And I just started to sob out of shock and relief and apologised profusely. I explained to them what just happened, and the very kind lady assured me I did the right thing and gave me a ride home. Looking back, I probably should have knocked, but I was scared, under the influence, and still a child, and the homeowners were very understanding. Still one of the scariest things that's happened to me, but I'm so glad that I trusted my gut and got away from that man, whose intentions seemed anything but pure. I still consider myself lucky that I got away. One of the comments actually gave some pretty good advice about this. They said, "I grew up in a high crime area. These are the things I did to create an aura of don't fuck with me. Look them right in the eye, make note of the plate number, continuously do an exercise to find 10 things to be used as a weapon within reach if needed. Walk tall, say no with force if you feel unsafe, use vulgarities, then walk confidently away. Stay away from warehouse/industrial areas or places with no people around after dark. That's usually where the trouble lies. Never go with a stranger, ever. Fight and get away no matter what. Run zigzag if they have a gun. Carry pepper spray and a knife. Take self-defense classes. Even one will help give you valuable tools to use if ever needed." Stranger hiding in my hotel room. It was April of 2000 remember this. There is a photo of me and MPG. I'm leaning against him with my eyes closed. I don't remember this. I woke up the next morning at home on the sofa. My husband was initially furious about the state I came home in, but he didn't know how bad it could have been. Apparently, several friends saw the MPG trying to guide me into a waiting car and stopped him. When they challenged him, he said I had agreed to leave with him, but I was incoherent at this point. I have no recollection of this, by the way. A female friend, N, took me home. I don't remember this, but I know my friend saved me from something horrible. Once my husband knew what had happened, he was very supportive and concerned, and told my husband how quickly my behaviour had changed and how quickly I had become uncoordinated and incoherent. This all took place 5 years ago. I saw the birthday girl recently, and she told me that MPG is currently in prison for assaulting his girlfriend in 2020. Please remember, always be careful with your drink, never leave it unattended. Watch out for your friends and make sure they are watching out for you. That's absolutely horrible. It just goes to show that you really cannot trust anyone, because this was a private party and she obviously, the birthday girl must have known this guy and thought he was a decent person, but clearly he's not. And the OP is absolutely right. Always keep your eye on your drink. And if you ever do leave it unattended, get a new one. I'm glad her friends were looking out for her, because this would have had a completely different ending if not. Okay, this is the last post I have for off all the lights inside the house and turning on the lights outside, I began moving from room to room, peering out the windows into the darkness. I couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. Whoever it was must have taken off after seeing me notice them and make a quick exit. Obviously, I had some trouble sleeping after this. I spent hours checking security cameras and going from room to room, looking out windows into the night, hoping but also not hoping that I would see anything that could explain what happened. This morning, I went outside to the spot where the figure would have been standing. I hoped maybe there was a plant or something that I mistook for a person. When I got to the spot, I realised the figure had to be standing exactly in a bare patch of ground, about 2 feet in diameter, directly in front of that window. Part of me is still hoping that I'm being paranoid. The mind can play tricks on you in the dark, seeing things that aren't there, especially when you're a sleep-deprived new parent. But with everything that's been happening, I can't shake the feeling that there was actually someone out there last night, watching us. Please let me be wrong. As for the update, nothing happened last night. I expected that would be the case for a couple reasons. First, so far, all of these events have taken place a week or 2 apart. The tapping this weekend and seeing the figure 2 nights ago were the closest in time of any of them. Second, this person absolutely realised I saw them, so I wouldn't expect them to be so bold as to come back the very next night. I still stayed up and kept an eye out though. To address some of the common questions, comments and advice. We own several guns. I'm well versed in gun safety and a pretty good shot if I'm going to brag on myself. Since we have a young child, I have kept all weapons locked away, but after this past week I've made sure to find places to store guns that are out of her reach but within my reach for quick access. There are blinds, curtains and solar screens on all our windows. The window in the story is dark and the curtains were drawn over it that night. They're those semi-see-through white ones, so I didn't notice the blinds weren't drawn. All windows are checked and covered as soon as I get home from now on. All our exterior doors are dead-bolted and the frames are reinforced. These were security measures put in by the previous owners that I thought were unnecessary, but am now grateful for. Anybody tries to kick their way in, the door will hold long enough for me to get ready for them. I've purchased and installed additional exterior cameras with motion-activated lights. I'm looking into buying additional motion-activated floodlights for the more remote corners of our property. Lots of people have mentioned getting a dog. While I love dogs, we have a pretty full house animal-wise right now, and I wouldn't feel good about taking in another animal that I wasn't sure we could give sufficient attention to. Our neighbours have 2 very alert dogs that are out all night, and they have been barking more often after dark the past few weeks, which is another reason we've been on edge. As for who this person might be, I don't think it's related to the previous owners. They were a married couple with no children who lived there for over 30 years. The husband died and the wife needed to downsize, which is why she sold